What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates Power Rangers Wave 2 review, and we're taking a look at the other Power Ranger in this wave. So we already took a look at Jason, or Rocky, and we're taking a look at our Pink Ranger today. So of course that means it's either, again, it's either Kimberly or it's Cat, depending on what you want to go with. Now, this one comes in our standard style Ultimates packaging, of course, but it's also, you know, a more normal size. It's not oversized. This is the normal stuff. You got your slipcover. We've got our Pterodactyl coin there on the front embossed in gold. And then you've got your MMPR logo on the back, of course. Pop that slipcover off, and we have our Ranger there in the big window with a whole bunch of accessories. You got your logo down there on the bottom, the green color scheme, and you've got your lightning bolts, your classic lightning bolts that wrap around from front to back. On the back of the package, we do, of course, have our bio for the Pink Ranger, as well as a little shot from the show. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull her out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package. Our Ultimates Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger. So we've got Kimberly or Cat under there, depending on your preference, and you do get both options. But I've been pretty excited about this one, not necessarily because I'm just diehard Pink Ranger fan, although I do love both versions of our MMPR Pink. I was really happy with the Yellow Ranger, and this is more of the same. It's a situation where a lot of the stuff that I've had criticisms of when it comes to what articulation does and doesn't work in this line, and Ultimates in general, kind of just seems to be the norm with the female Rangers in particular. I find them to be some of the better articulated figures in the line. So let's see what she can do, see how she moves around. If you do have Trini or Aisha, depending on, again, your preference, it's basically the same, but this figure being the Pink Ranger, she does have the skirt, so that does introduce one area of restriction that Trini Yellow Ranger doesn't have. So we've got our head that can look up pretty good. She can look down pretty good. This is a hinged peg, so it's not just a normal ball peg. You don't really have any tilt. You've got full rotation. Arms out at the shoulders. They swivel. You got a bicep swivel there. We've got single jointed swiveling elbows. I will note the joints here are painted, so you're going to see paint rub right away because the arms are painted. So there's going to be paint in there. You've got hinges, rotation at the wrist. And the big thing for me with the female figures with the Rangers, specifically because they're so different from the male figures, which I don't really understand why it needed to be different between the two, because those male Rangers have that weird ab crunch. Diaphragm cut that actually works, and that sounds like a weird thing to harp on, but there's a lot of instances in Ultimates where figures have diaphragm cuts that don't do anything. You know, they maybe swivel, which is not the point of that cut. It's meant to provide tilt forward, backward, and side to side, and that's what this one does. Forward is maybe not as much as I would like to see, but backward is good, and side tilt is really nice here. Not to mention, she still has a ball-jointed waist, so she can go backwards really good, and she can still go forwards a good bit, but tilt to the side is really nice, and of course this is also a little bit of a swivel up here, and then you've got swivel down at the waist. So she does have pretty decent range at the torso, so that's just nice to see. Legs are well articulated, like there's good range here, but she's restricted by the skirt. I am going to urge some caution when you're moving these legs because there is paint on this skirt. Obviously, it's two colors. It's going to crack, and I'm already seeing it crack this white piping on mine, so I'm not going to go crazy with it. She can go out about that far. Like, it's cracking over here more than it is on this side, which I'm kind of surprised about. And she can kick forward about that far. Backward slightly. You got your thigh twist up there. Single jointed swiveling knee. You don't really need that swivel because we do have a boot cut on this figure. So you got a boot cut there, and then you've got your rocker and really good hinges down at those ankles. So like, she is pretty well articulated. There's definitely something to say about the fact that they went a little bit extra, at least with the female figures when it comes to Rangers. I know that they did want to try to make them as dynamic as they need to be, because of course Power Rangers that can only stand still are not going to be exciting. So they definitely do move better than your average Super 7 Ultimates. And in many ways, the female Rangers, you know, save for the fact that Kimberly here has the skirt that gets in the way, does move a lot better than most Ultimates just in general. Now, as far as the overall look and feel and the visuals here, I'm pretty happy with her. There is and there isn't a lot to talk about with the Ranger figures in Ultimates because the bodies themselves are, you know, just kind of standard boilerplate template bodies. Don't have any real musculature to them. I mean, they do, but they don't. And it's just solid colors, really, which isn't a negative to say. It's Power Rangers, so that's what they look like. One thing I am really happy with this figure, and it's not perfect, but I wish I don't have my Lightning collection available at the moment to really harp on this too much, but the Lightning collection had the craziest color variance from torso to limbs. Torso was like purple almost on that figure. It was, well, it was pink-ish, but it was not pink. This problem is not as evident on the Super 7 figure. Now, the limbs are painted on this figure, so that does change the texture and look a little bit. So she's kind of shiny on the torso and not as shiny on the arms, but the color, just consistency of that pink, I think is a lot better. It's not perfect, but I think it's a lot better, so I'm happy with that. And what is painted here is pretty clean. Like, I don't have any concerns here. The lines on the belt and the holster look good. The diamonds on the bracers on the boots look really good. I still love the fact, and it's present on a lot of releases. It's not just a thing that Super 7 did. The lines on the boot, I love seeing that. It's one of those little details that's like a quintessential thing on a Power Ranger boot. I just like seeing it and that it's present. Morpher looks good. You can somewhat distinguish that it's a pterodactyl on there. And the Power Rangers is pretty clean. It's okay. Like, that's the one area where I'm not going to kind of go crazy on because it's so small. But it's tampoed nicely enough. I haven't really been too concerned about those. They've been decent enough across the, 4 Rangers that I've looked at now. The big thing for me is just the cleanliness of the paint on the figure in general, and I don't have any problems here. The white to pink, no bleeding, no fuzzy lines, none of that kind of stuff. It's all very clean and consistent. And then I think the helmet sculpt here is also really nice. I mean, the Pink Ranger, of course, has a very definitive helmet with the pterodactyl on the front with the green eyes. You've got the white, the black, the pink, and the silver for the mouth. And I love the fact that the silver is super metallic. It does have some nice shine to it. Sizing looks really good too here also. So I'm pretty happy with this one. I think in general, this is a pretty solid figure. Maybe not as exciting as some of the other figures in this wave. You know, we've got King Sphinx, we've got Rita, we've got a Dragon Zord in this wave. So there's some really heavy hitter type stuff in this wave. But I do think the female figures in general for Power Rangers Ultimates have been pretty solid. Now for some size comparisons, let's do some other Ranger Ultimates. So we've got Goldar here on the left from Wave 1. We've got our Red Ranger here on the right from Wave 2, just to give you an idea of where they stack up. So Goldar is, you know, on the tall side, and then we've got our Red Ranger, and he is like half a head taller, maybe 3/4 of a head taller, which I think works pretty well. The females and the males should not be the same height because they weren't. And so this makes things a little bit consistent in terms of variance between the figures. Let's pull Jason / Rocky aside. Let's do a Mythic Legion. So here is Vorthog. Let's do a Hasbro figure. So here's going to be a Marvel Legends. Here is the new Bishop. And let's do a Figuarts. So here is Piccolo. And then let's do one more entirely different kind of thing. Here's a Plunder Strong, because why not? So she's going to mesh pretty well with just about anything that's, you know, ultimate size, 7-ish inch range. She is going to scale tall compared to the overwhelming majority of Hasbro figures, but they're not in the same scale anyway. Now for accessories, our Pink Ranger does have quite a bit of stuff. The one thing that's kind of different between this figure and a lot of the others is that there's not a whole lot of deep cut stuff with this one. I'm not really complaining about that. I find myself struggling to really use any of that kind of stuff. It's cool, but I don't know what to do with half of it. This figure just includes a lot of very Ranger-specific accessories. So to start with, we do get our extra head sculpts. Just like the rest of the Rangers, that means unhelmeted heads. And these are okay. I think these are better than the male heads we've seen thus far, but I still don't think they're exactly hitting the mark. So here's our Kimberly head sculpt. And it looks pretty good, but I feel like there's still room for improvement on these. And then we've also got, of course, we've also got our Cat head sculpt. I feel like the Kimberly head is the better of the two, but you've got options if you want to have an unhelmeted Ranger. I never do that, so these are largely inconsequential to me. It's cool to get them, though. We do get a bunch of extra hands, so she has fists on her in the box. You get a set of these sort of flat palm hands, chopping style hands, posing hands. We get 2 sets of gripping hands, so you get a set of a vertical hinge and you get a set of lateral hinge, so that's 4 more. And then we get some hands that would go along with some of the weaponry. So we've got a hand for holding the bow and holding the arrow between the fingers. And then we've also got a hand that can be used as either as a pointing hand, or it can be used to hold the blade blasters. And speaking of blade blasters, we do get a lot of those as usual. So I've already got one on her right now. You've got one version that can be holstered. That's the standard, you know, the closed version. You've got the blade version. And of course, these are all unique. They're not modular. So you get various versions of each one. You're going to have a lot of these if you buy all the Rangers. You get the gun version. Sculpt is good. Paint is really good. Like, there's a lot of little intricate paint detail on these. And then you also get the vintage Bandai, the white one, since we keep doing those. We get our bows as well. So one of these, to start, is the one that she's going to actually use. Paint is good, sculpt is good, it's sized well, it's strung as well, which terrifies me because that makes me think I'm going to shoot a arrow into the void, which I'm surprised I haven't already done that. We get this one, which is meant to actually make the power blaster. And I guess I didn't pick up on the fact that this was included. So it's got these slots for the blue and yellow Rangers weaponry, and we obviously don't have everything we need to string all this together yet. But it sounds like it's coming. And then you get the silver one that came with the Bandai toy. So our vintage one. And then we get some other little things. So we've of course got a morpher for her. We've got an open morpher. We've got her crystal. We get a single arrow to use with the bow. We get this is like one of the few kind of just non-ranger specific things. I mean, it is, but it isn't. We get her little baton with the ribbon on it, which I don't know what I'm ever going to do with that. And then because of Cat, you know, we've got a little white cat as well for a little slug figure. So I'm happy to get that. It's something just to put down at the feet of the Rangers. So she does come with a decent amount of stuff. Like I said, not a ton of really deep cut stuff like we've seen across the board with some of these figures. But in general, there's a lot of substantive things included with her to give us various different options for weaponry, head sculpts, the whole 9 yards really. So overall, I'm really happy with this figure. I'd say in general, and surprisingly so, the female Rangers have been some of the better figures in this wave, well, in these waves thus far. They move better than the male figures, I think, just by virtue of that diaphragm cut and the ball-jointed waist and it working in conjunction with one another. Diaphragm cut that actually works is something I want to see across the board. She looks good, she moves well, and she has a really solid set of accessories. It's not some of the weird, goofy, crazy stuff we get all the time, but this figure has just about everything you need for a pink Ranger. You get both heads, a lot of hands, we get all the, you know, the actual show accurate and toy accessories you could really ask for, 1,500 blade blasters, and then we get the makings of our power blaster since we have that extra bow included, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, I just either forgot or didn't realize it was coming, so that was a nice surprise. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Power Rangers Wave 2 Pink Ranger. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.